Welcome back to Black Lotus Buds. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Michael. Thanks for joining us.
We're kicking off our third episode on the channel where we're talking all things trading cards. So let me just jump right on in. Last time we were talking about Pokemon Pocket TCG. And I gotta tell you, Mike, I got into it, man. I downloaded it and I wanted to see what it was about, man, because I wanted to be able to talk to you about it. And wow. Like I said last time, I've never played Pokemon, or at least that I can remember. I didn't really know how to play, so it's been an experience, like learning it from the beginning.
Wait a second. How deep have you gotten? Are you like playing against players, or did you just like load it up and rip some packs?
Yeah, did the pack thing, got, I think, frustrated. I would imagine like many people do, perhaps, like where it seemed like you weren't actually going to be able to play. It took me a while to actually like figure out how to navigate, and I'm sure they'll make it better. So I feel bad that we're bashing it, but it was a little bit of a difficult experience and like learning curve just to figure out where things are, how to actually play. It took a while to get through the tutorials to actually then get into like a battle mode and then play against the AI or computer. So that's really where I got. I think I'm only like level 8 or something, and I've got like 60 or 80 cards now. So
interesting. So I also downloaded Pocket and played it for the first time.
Ooh.
I did it on like a lunch break, and I didn't really have any difficulty like cruising through. I was just kind of clicking and like, like I had an addiction. Just I knew what time it was. Like click through the prompts and get cards. And I didn't have an unenjoyable experience for sure. I liked ripping the packs and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I think you're probably guaranteed one of the like rarer cards in the very beginning. I think I even got a Charmander, which is one of my favorite Pokemon. But I'm like collecting them, and at the end of the day, I just know that I'm not really looking to allot time to playing the trading card part of that. And so I kind of lost the appeal of like ripping the packs. And some of that's because I'm spoiled, dude. Like when I come home, I've got like booster boxes on the table of different games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, I can just rip these cards, and I really enjoy it. So it's like it's missing the allure for me, because I'm so into the actual trading card game that I don't really care to collect the digital versions right now. And so I think I need to be able to want to battle it. Maybe you doing so will kind of drag me into it. If you're like, dude, it was pretty awesome. I might, I might have to compete, pick it back up. But outside of that, I had a great time. Like, it was fun ripping them and stuff. I can definitely get the appeal if you weren't, I'm probably most adults are like not buying Pokemon cards left and right.
Yeah.
And they might enjoy this more because they're like, this will get that fix, and then I don't, they don't have a binder. I've got like Dragon Shield sleeves and perfect fit penny sleeves, and like I'm all equipped for ripping packs. So I still like the regular trading card better. But on the flip side of that, I also downloaded Arena onto my PC this time.
Ooh.
And I guess I had like Magic the Gathering, which is different. I guess one is more flashy and flair and animation and stuff like that. That's Arena. And the other is just like straight up Magic. Like you flipping the cards or doing it yourself kind of deal. And I just started doing the tutorial because you were like, yeah, this time don't do it when you're at the Nissan dealership getting your oil changed.
Right.
And I liked it a lot more. And I haven't even gotten through the tutorial, but I just kind of went through the first couple, and it's got music, and instead of like reading the prompts, and I'm like, I was literally sitting there getting my oil change, and I'm like, I see it highlight a card, and so I'm like, it's trying to tell me something, but since it's muted, I don't even know what. So I'm just like mashing this. It's not really working. And so with the audio on, I hear there's like a prompt. And so the reason it wasn't working is it was finishing the prompt and it's saying, this is the mechanic. This is why it's important. Now try it. And so, I mean, I'm definitely going to get into it. I just
Oh, that's
enjoyed
cool.
it. Yeah, I like the flash and flare. And, you know, unlike Pokemon for me, you know, I have that's a very I'm just a I'm heavy as a collector of all things. I'm always like this. I don't know what it is. It's like I could be buying a pocket knife and I'm going to consider the collectability.
Hmm.
Like my buddy wanted me to buy a firearm and I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't own any, but literally my head is going to like, okay, well, which of these wouldn't lose any value? And so that is just ingrained in me. It doesn't matter if it's a car, you know, a PC. It's like I just that's a part of my like quirkiness.
Mm.
And having Magic Arena, it's like I guess I'm not focused on the collectability. So, you know, Pokemon Pocket, I'm like, who cares that I'm collecting these digitally? Because I'm a Pokemon master, man. Like, you know, I already
Right.
collect these. But Magic, it's like I can't I can't get a feel for the game without it. Like I need it and it's fun. Like it's, you know, Pokemon Pocket was fun. But it's like I have the purpose. Like I'm gonna play and I'm gonna learn it and I'm eventually gonna play you. And so that it has like a different allure for me. I
Yeah,
had fun with both.
it's easy to comprehend the game of Pokemon when I was like going through the motions and just figuring out what was what. Uh,
I wasn't
th-
expecting you to start with Pokemon TCG Pocket.
I wanted to have something to talk about. No, we can talk about anything, but I just was like really eager to actually like understand the game more because when you were like, yeah, Pokemon can be a little bit more for like the younger crowd. I was like, well, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how to interpret that. I have to just like see for myself. Um, and it was really neat to be like, oh, this is a lot. Like, I don't know why it took me, 20 some odd years to finally get to this point to actually learn how to play it.
It'll be cool if you like really like it and then you can kind of refresh me on what the new meta is and maybe I'll be like, "Dang, dude, I'm coming back."
They
I
have a,
saw a screenshot earlier though and it was like it said like rip and it's somebody it was a clip and they were quitting the game and it was because they had like a card out, the opponent had a card out, they had to flip, they got like 8 heads in a row, they were allowed to like attach energies and then they had like 2 Pokemon on the sideline that had abilities that would heal. And so it was like every turn they were dishing out like 80 damage, attaching energies and healing for like outrageous amounts. And it was just like that's what I kind of remember. And
mm,
I just like I don't know, I guess it's so straightforward that I find the complexity to Magic, I think, a little more appealing. Like it's just sure, maybe it's going to be the same kind of deal, you know? You go up against a guy, he knows what I'm doing, but it's like I don't understand, it's the mechanic that makes that work. So each time I learn that, I'm learning a mechanic. It's not really like in Pokemon. It's like what's the new shiny Mega card, and you know what I mean. It's the same one with a different face. That's how I feel. I don't even know if that's true because I'm not, you know, I'm speaking out of ignorance here.
well,
I
you're
haven't
you're
played
you're
much.
on point because like the heavy appeal in Pokemon is like these evolving creatures that can deal more and more damage. And like you can just have the biggest creature out there with the right card draw. There's not a whole ton of crazy ability cards, and I guess these trainers, and I haven't really even gotten to the point of seeing what other cards there are other than like just the regular Pokemon and then these trainer cards. So I'm eager to learn more and more about it. But with Magic, other than creatures, there's enchantments, there's sorceries, there's instants, there's artifacts, and then there's like battles, and the list can just keep going. Um, and there's because of that, that opens up like pretty much what you're saying. The strategies get way more complicated and it just allows it. It's not as easy for your opponent to just like bash you and win. There's a lot of like, if they're going to be heavy on attacking with creatures, you could literally just have a card. There's one that's Sunfall. I think it's 5 mana, and exile all creatures on the battlefield. Like, you can just remove everything that they have going for them, and you could pretty much like try to gain some life before you play any creatures, and just bait them into putting all their like attacking ability creatures out there, and then just wipe them off. And now they're gonna have absolutely nothing. And then it'd be a late game strategy to do something like that. But there's so many different techniques and abilities with Magic that, gosh,
Bro,
man.
if I had like millions and I could just retire, I would just learn all these trading card games. Like a sorcery, it seems to have like the sorcery contested realm. It seems to have like, you're expanding your territory and you're creating your strategy, and it forces you to some degree to have a little bit of setup before you start going ham. And I like that. And it's like, I know Yu-Gi-Oh has the trap cards, and it's like, gosh, man, I want to play all of these. But I'm going to start with Arena because it'll fit into my schedule, and it's there. You know what I mean? A couple clicks, and I'm playing.
Right. And then, of course, we could exchange the gamer tags and be able to play here and there. But it'll be cool for you to just learn like the game, the actual mechanics of the game, and then make sense of that, and then now be able to appreciate these collectible cards in a different way. Because now, like what we've been saying this whole time, it's like a lot of the collectability can boil down to either the rarity of the card or just how popular that card is in competitive play. And there's so much of that. I think that like a lot of people just overlook that if they're just open up packs and putting them in sleeves and just keeping them in a binder. And I'm excited for you to, maybe break your tradition of locking up some cards in a box and maybe actually putting them in a deck to play.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to that either. Now for that, my channel, I won't be able to do it because they're like, it's like sacred ground. You know what I mean? Like I can't cheat my audience. But for me personally, it's like, oh yeah, I'm competitive. So if I feel like I like it and I'm good at it, it's like I get this little demon on my shoulder that's just like, you're the best. You must keep going, and I will like stop at nothing to get whatever cards I need for my deck. You'll like see me on the news. I'll be like getting taken to jail, and you'll call me and you'll be like, Michael, what happened? I'll be like, I needed that card, Kevin. There's only one left in existence. I had to break in and try to get it. I'm going back tomorrow. Like,
it's good stuff, man. The new set Foundations is like full of insane art cards, like different styles that I've seen before. Maybe they're bringing some styles that are old back. They definitely bringing back a lot of older cards that I've seen several of.
Dude, I don't know. I think Sorcery did this to me, but I maybe it's getting older too. Maybe it's that it's less taboo than Pokemon cards. You know what I mean? Like, that's a hard intro. Like, hi, my name's Mike, and I like playing with Pokemon cards. Like, that's a rough introduction. People judge that, and it's like, I've been really into art. Like, I bought a canvas that I threw a sorcery card on because I was collecting it, but I've now hung it. It's now in my house, and I have the card next to it. It's like mounted on the wall in a sleeve, like just with some mounting. It's seamless. It's just a cute little miniature right next to it. And I dig it so much. And one of the things I was looking at before the podcast was I was trying to look at stuff on the Pokemon website, Pokemon Center, and there was an art piece. It was like $80. And I didn't pull the trigger on it because I was like, I don't want to be too spontaneous, but I can picture a little wall of different art and like kind of getting to know the artists and their style, and it's like it's something I never did before, I guess. So like appreciating the art on all the cards is like a new a new thing. It started with Sorcery, the contested realm, because they used it as part of their pitch. Is like, yeah, the artwork is the big sell on this. But now I'm kind of like, the wall that I put that one piece on, it's minor explosion. It's just like a skeleton exploding into dust and light, and it's like I just kind of picture this little Pokemon artwork next to it. I want a whole collage of trading card arts on the wall now.
Yeah, there's the big one in Magic was Christopher Rush, pretty notable artist when he did Black Lotus and then all these other like cards in the beginning of Magic. And I don't know if maybe his style resonated with a lot of artists who either like copied it or did something similar to keep that style growing within Magic, and then that turned into Pokemon and all this other stuff with Sorcery too. But I know Sorcery is big on um, saying that all their cards are hand painted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they
just
wanted
sweet.
I think they were trying to capitalize on. I don't know what was happening with Magic, but people at the time Sorcery was coming out, there was this like buzz of dissatisfaction in the Magic community. Some was over these like pre-rendered, like not pre-rendered, digitally rendered card art, and some was over, I think, new intellectual properties entering. And I think that was part of the strategy of that game, was they felt like maybe they could kind of sneak in and take some of the market away from Magic because of that. People that were dissatisfied with that might pivot. At the end of the day, to me, they're just like completely different games. Like Sorcery, Magic, Pokemon. I just feel like you can appreciate the art of all of them in some way. I
Mm-hmm.
still remember, dude, it was a gym hero card, maybe. It was like a sand shrew on like a rock with a sunset behind it. And it was like I first saw it as a Japanese card. It wasn't even, I thought it was just special from Japan, but eventually they all made their way to America too. But, I didn't have prints on my walls, but even back then, you look at something that's cool and it's just like it hits you. And like, I mean, that's like a core memory for me. And it's all because of some dude drew that like that. And so, I don't know, man. Art is definitely something I can appreciate. When you're talking, are you meaning like those little, the ones you were talking about making coasters out of? Like the full art Magic cards?
So those full art cards are like they're usually pulled. I think they might be all pulled from like so like let's just say because we've said it so many times, like Unstoppable Slasher. He might have
Yeah.
like his own full art card that's just like the actual art of that card, like that is showing him in the full scene, and then they're like, and you're not going to play with that card. That's just a full art card for show. Then there's the like, and I don't know how. Maybe I'm saying the name of it wrong, but like then there's the full art card for the card that you're playing with, and it's literally called like full art, or it's called extended art. Um, as like the classification. So that's like the one that still has all the abilities on the card and the name of the creature and everything, or if it's not a creature, it's something else. Um, and that's the one that looks amazing. So that on foil is usually like the one that everybody wants, the most valuable one, because it's just like the most beautiful. It shows you everything you really want to see from the artwork. So I like playing with all of them. Of course, I like to collect and play with the ones that I get, but the full art ones are sweet. But the ones that you're just collecting, like for those coasters that I was talking about last time, um, I think there are like ones that you'll get of like a planeswalker, like Liliana, that you could even use as Liliana in like a friendly game. Be like, well, we all know who this crazy legendary planeswalker. Maybe I can just throw it in a sleeve and we'll pretend it is the real card. But it's just
So
for like fun stuff. That's
this was a question I had. I meant to use it as like a talking point. I kind of forgot about it. I didn't write it down, but you just talking kind of reminded me. I wanted to ask you about, you have all these binders, and I don't know why I didn't picture that. And I have cards in a bunch of boxes, but I do have binders as well. my binders are basically full collections, like absolute master set, everything in whatever set it is, it's complete. And then I have one more that's just Chi Yu. It's every Chi Yu card because that was a new Pokemon, and I just wanted to catch them all of one Pokemon. I have Charizards because they're iconic, and I like layer all of those in between full art pages. So it's like the rarer cards and the ones that are prettiest, the Pokemon. And that's just like my modern personal collection. You know, I don't worry about value. I every full art card goes right on in there. And occasionally I'll buy a couple Charizards from that are all damaged back in the day. But that's my binders, our master sets in that one little private collection. And what are your binders? Because you said you have like four of them. They seem to be growing. It's like I'm just what like if I had it in my hand, what am I looking at?
So there's one that's just pretty much like nonsensical creatures, just common and uncommon creatures, organized by color and then organized by the mana cost. Cheapest
Now you do
to
that with the sense of competition, so you can find those like that just seems to be organized based on a practical use, right? Like so you can
exactly.
go in and look at them. Okay,
Well, if I
gotcha.
yeah, so like if I'm breaking down one of my decks, because now I've got like 10 60 cards decks that are pretty much most of them are still standard, but some of them are now not standard legal because they just phased out like 3 or 4 sets from years ago, and I happen to have like each of those sets. So a big portion of my collection has been phased out of standard, but I still am going to play those friendly play with my friends. And the binders are pretty much all the other cards that I have. There's like the ones that are collectible that are worth money that I do have in sleeves off to the side that I'm not playing with. But for the most part, these binders are going to be like when I break down a deck, which happens periodically, I'll be like, you know what? This strategy with these two colors is now like terrible with all the other great cards that they've released. And now I'll break down a deck and maybe keep one of those colors and add a different color, or like the most recent one I did a white and blue artifact deck. So I forget which deck I broke down, but I then have a binder that's my artifacts that it also includes artifact creatures, and like enchantments. So then I was able to go through that and really look over, all right, what are all the good white or blue or white and blue cards that are going to synergize really well with this artifact deck, and then started to build it from there. And then the other binder I have with creatures, with rare cards, with legendary creatures, or just legendary cards in general, planeswalkers, some like legendary uh, enchantments. Um, that really just helps me then finish that deck idea and then put it to the test and then tweak it by just, going right to the page that has all my blue creatures that are, 5 mana. And I'll say, okay, which of these do I want to have in the deck? Don't want to have too many large mana cards, but you have to pick a balance with whatever the deck idea you have. And I've got so many
Man, you
cards, it's
get
just
me all
easier to do
hyped,
that.
man.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like
with just Bloomborough and then Duskmorn, like that would already be a substantial collection that you could easily just organize into like the card type, and then have binders of just the card types.
it makes a lot of sense to organize the bulk in terms of competition. Like I don't know why. I mean, I guess I've never really known what I was ever going to do with them. You know what I mean? Like if you're not making a deck, it's like what am I doing with all this magic?
Yeah,
But that's what I did with my Pokemon just instinctively because it's like how else do I organize it? So I separate it into type. And I guess that makes sense with Magic. You do the same. God, I want to build like almost like a cabinet. And you just open it and it's all of my cards. You know, you got binders, you got sets for building decks, you got the rare collectibles locked away. Gosh,
yeah. You've got like a dim purple glowing light on like a couple of the insanely valuable cards, just protected
yes.
and all glossy and shiny. Yeah,
It sounds amazing.
I'm really eager to pull like a valuable card. Like I feel like it's my time now. With like the last pack opening I did, and I got a couple $12 cards, $5 cards. I feel like I'm bound to stumble upon something. Especially with the new set foundations that came out, there's some already pretty valuable cards out there. And I wanted to ask you, um, throwing you like under the bus here. I'm just gonna pretty much give you like 2 cards from the new set that are wild. I'll try to do my best at explaining what they are, not giving any like extra information unless you want to ask me. And then we'll figure out what you think the better card is, not coming from like a competitive standpoint, but just knowing cards in general. Sound good?
All right, wait. You want me to tell you which the best is? Like,
I'm going to give you 2 cards. I'm going to give you this card. I'm going to give you that card. And I'm going to say, all right, which is better, this or that?
All right.
All right.
Let's do it.
So both of these are from Foundations, and they're both pretty high mana value cost cards. One is 7 mana, and one is 10 mana, which is pretty wild. Like in most cases, you're going to maybe have like a 7 mana card in your deck. If you have any more than one 7 mana card, you're probably playing like a ramp deck where it's going to be a long game. You're really like trying to keep your opponent from doing anything crazy in the beginning of the game, and then you're slowly building up this wild ramp of a style that come the mid and late part of the game, you can't be stopped. So the first card is Herald of Eternal Dawn. 4 colorless, 3 planes, so a total of 7 mana. It's a mythic angel. It's a 6/6 creature with flying, and this is the ability it has. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. Okay? So that's this one, and then I'm going to give you that one. That one is oh my gosh, I can't even say this word. Omniscience, I guess. Enchantment. It's 10 mana, so it's 7 colorless and 3 islands, and it's an enchantment, and this is what it reads. You may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. So we've got the 7 mana creature, 6/6 with flying. Can't win the game, your opponents can't lose. You can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game. And then this other one, you can cast a spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Which of those do you think is the better card?
I would have to go with this. And the reason I say that is because the second one doesn't make sense to me. Because if you get to the point where, and I could be wrong, I guess, but if you get to the point where you have all that mana, it seems like you wouldn't need a card that would negate the use for mana. Like if you've invested to cost it, or to cast it, I mean, but maybe it's like you use it in decks that are like multicolored. But I'm still gonna go with this, even though it's weird. But you said you can't lose and your opponent can't win, so I'm gonna go with that because it forces a win or a tie for the user.
Pretty much.
So this is my answer.
Okay, fair enough. I like your answer. There's really no wrong or right answer, but I would say, that card, Omniscience, which again I hope I'm saying correctly. That one, this is how you would really want to take advantage of that card. Yes, it's 10 mana, but there's cards in Magic that are, as we talked about before, milling cards. You take them out of your library and you can put them into your graveyard. There's like 4 and 5 mana cost cards, quite a few of them, and plenty in Standard that are like pull non-land permanent card out of your graveyard and put it on the battlefield. So you would be able to focus on, like, your strategy in the beginning of the game would be trying to get that 10 mana card in your hand and then trying to get that thing in the graveyard, in the yard, as quickly as you possibly could. Sometimes your opponents will help you because they're going to be like, discard a card, and that sometimes might work to your strategy. Rarely does it work to your strategy, but it can. But that would be pretty much the only way you would then take advantage of that card, is by, for less than the value of the mana value of the card, you playing a different card that allows you to get that on the battlefield without having to pay its mana cost. And then right then and there, once that's on the battlefield, you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. Every single thing in your hand at that point, other than a land, should be able to get put out on the battlefield that turn. It'd be wild. It'd be crazy. I'm excited to see that show up because I've only been on standard ranked for a little bit here. On Arena, and I haven't stumbled upon some wild strategies that are just out there lurking. Oh, I heard you're
crazy.
I
Yeah,
heard your
Rocky's.
cat. Yeah,
He's joined us now. I don't know
nice.
what he's on about. His food bowl is probably a little too low or something for his liking, or maybe he's cold. I don't know what it is, but he's here with us too.
Nice.
It's gonna be interesting learning all of these for Magic. Because so Pokemon is coming out with some new set, and it's like, dude, I haven't even opened up the full box of the last set I bought. It just came out, and it's like already we're talking about the next one. Pre-orders are sold out, and it's like I feel like Magic is a little more reasonable, a little fewer releases per year. But it is. I feel like it's a lot to keep up with. Like, it's, I guess, not really a lot to keep up with. It's not like it's like too much that you don't want to get into it. It's just that it's ever changing.
Yeah.
So
that's
it's
very
like
true.
always evolving.
Exactly. Especially when you're like keeping up with it in that like standard realm, that format where you're just playing with like the more recent cards. Timeless, I think, is going to be cool at some point once I have, once it's years and years from now and I still have the, all the cards that I pulled the very first time. I was opening up packs. Innistrad Midnight Hunt of Magic. That was the first set that I got involved in, and was really fortunate to pull some cards that were valuable at the time and got me like eager to be able to take advantage of playing with them against my friend who was really good, and was able to beat him. Or he helped me design some of my deck ideas. I have to give him a lot of credit, but ultimately now I've gotten to be on par with him, I think, as far as skill level. He's really knowledgeable about like so many various strategies that are like not common. There's like wild strategies in Magic that are like we were talking about with Pokemon, where and I don't know if there's like more strategies in Pokemon that are like not common, but if they show themselves in play, you really have no shot at winning. There's a couple in Magic that are like that hide like that you just might all of a sudden like somebody's betting their strategy. It's like either they're going to win or they're going to lose. There's no like potential for them to get close to beating you. There's some wild strategies that are like that.
I think that, if there was going to be a game like that, it would be more comparable to Sorcery Contested Realm, having like some sort of strange broken mechanic. I think for Pokemon, you're just going to have kind of the same couple metas. And they might change, every set might have a different couple metas. But what was interesting about that is, I can't remember, but it was like a world tournament deck. I guess after people play, they take the winning decks or the finalist decks, and then they reproduce them, and you can buy them. And I was surprised once that one of the winning decks was not some crazy, cheap glitch deck. And maybe that's because that kind of deck doesn't have longevity. It's just hard to imagine. Like the decks that I was playing with years ago on the online, it was I think just TCG online for Pokemon. Dude, it's just hard to imagine. You were like plopping out these Pokemon. It was like you could have like any of 10 Pokemon you drew, and it was basically game over. And I even saw like a meme that was talking about like don't ever go first in Pokemon because you can't place your energy, and basically your opponent is, as long as he gets his card in one energy, it's like game over. Like they're already off to the races, and it's like I think Pokemon is going to have the least complexity of any of the other trading cards. I'm really completely ignorant about Yu-Gi-Oh and One Piece and Dragon Ball. I don't know those really at all anymore at this point. But between Sorcery, Magic, and Pokemon, I think Magic is going to have the most weird stuff like that. And Pokemon, it's just going to be like, okay, these two are the best like cards you want in this deck, and maybe you have another set that's like, okay, this set can kind of troll it, but and I could be wrong. Again, I really haven't played in a long time, but that's what I remember. I
And
missed the old like evolve them slowly and hope you get the right. I guess it's more boring play, but I miss that like the original Pokemon. That's some old fart noise I'm making over here.
well, knowing now that there's like 12 cards in your deck in Pokemon, or it's 12, 20 in your deck versus Magic where it could be like 60 or it could be 100, in Commander. Like right away that tells you, okay, there's going to be less variation. Like there might not be so much depth, but it will
Wait,
be
was it 20 cards that you played
on Pokemon
on?
unless I'm playing the wrong thing. Yeah, it was
I
on
think
the
maybe that might be pocket only
oh.
because it's interesting. Now I might have to go and check because I'm pretty sure a standard Pokemon deck used to be 60,
Oh gosh. Yeah,
and you would have energies, Pokemon, and trainer cards to make up your deck.
that's what it was in this format, but it was just 20. Maybe it's just in the tutorial where it's just easy to grasp a game and then they say, okay, now, now when you play the real thing against real people, you're going to be playing with 60 cards. But everything I've played so far has just been 20. And it's easy because, like, very quickly you'll draw your whole whole library. And now you've got, like, the rest of your Pokemon are just in your hand. So you can kind of, pretty easily strategize what you're going to do, knowing that everything is, like, right in front of you. Magic, you're still always like guessing that you're betting on, okay, well, if I put 4 of these enchantments that are like the bulk of my strategy in this deck, that means every 15 cards I should be pulling one. And I've pulled 13 cards halfway through the game. I better at this point expect to be pulling one of those enchantments to make everything line up. One that I loved, the strategy, was just with an artifact, and it was just a really neat mechanic where you would tap it. You can tap it during your turn or during your opponent's turn, and then it would deal. You could sacrifice an artifact, and then it would deal 1 damage to your opponent, and you would gain a life. So it didn't do a whole lot, but over like 5 turns, if you kept using that mechanic every turn, and you eventually, in 5 turns, you've now dealt them 5 damage, and you've gained 5 life. That's a 10-point swing when everything is said and done, and that could really be the difference of winning the game and not winning the game. And that then created the entire strategy. The card is Oni Cult, if anybody wants to look it up. One of my favorite strategies, because it was just really difficult at the time for people to be able to counter it because they were so used to just like trying to defeat big creatures, and then all of a sudden this artifact shows up that's just quietly taking a 1/1 creature. Believe it or not, it was an artifact creature you could sacrifice, and if you did it during your turn, you would just create another 1/1 artifact creature. So you would just have this endless loop, and if they didn't kill that silly little 1/1 creature with whatever crazy spells they had, you would just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and beat them. It was fun. It's just hard for people to counter. But then we talk about like other cards. This one called a Traxa Grand Unifier, and this is what you were talking about with Pokemon, and even like the avatars of sorcery, where if you see this card hit the battlefield, it's like, oh my god, like usually the player's going to win unless you have something that gets it out of the game immediately because of how good it is. And it's like 4 different colors. It's every color but red, so you have to have a ton of mana, and people were just focusing on strategies of getting this card into the yard and then pulling it out of the yard on turn 4 or turn 5. And in some cases now, there's a strategy where you can pull it out on, I think, turn 3. And right then, it's like, if you have a 7-mana creature on the battlefield on turn 3 or turn 4, there's an 80% chance, like, you've won the game.
Bro, I want to build a deck so bad, man. I wish we lived in the same state.
Gosh, I know all this
It's all
talk
right.
of like
There's
otters and stuff, man. Like, wait
I
until
know,
you
I
start
know.
seeing all the rabbits and the mice in Bloomborough. I don't know. Do you have a box of Bloomborough?
No, it was just that booster
Okay,
or
cool.
just the box or what the
Yeah, like
trainer
nine
box. I don't
packs.
know. And
It's
yeah,
it's a
Pokemon,
booster.
it's called it's a booster bundle. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Pokemon, it's called an Elite Trainer box.
Oh, cool.
Same thing.
So when you're collecting Pokemon cards, do you like want to grab a box of the set, or are some sets like do you overlook, like are they perhaps not as collectible cards that are in that set, and do you go for like one of these smaller bundle boxes?
So, I mean, throughout the years, it's been everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've bought. I mean, there have been times where I couldn't even get cards. Like you literally, they're sold out everywhere. You're fighting in line. I used to have uh connections at like Best Buy. I knew the guy and I knew all the rules, and it was like they would hide the cards and tell you they didn't have them, but they really did. And if you knew them, they would get them, but they would only sell them to you like at a limit of 5. But then if you knew them, they would explain to you that it was like 5 per UPC label. So, and what they were trying to do is stop scalpers. So there was a point where, and I think it's still a problem, man, where people were just buying so many car packs with the prospect of reselling them at a higher price later that people couldn't actually get the cards. So, I used to just get what I could get. And now I'm kind of at the booster box because I get more bang for my buck. I get to open more, and it makes sense. I'm doing that with sorcery because that's I can't really buy that other than online. There's no shop I know of near me that has them. I'm sure
Mhm.
there are, but I don't know what they are. And then with the other stuff, it's kind of like sometimes I want an elite trainer box for Pokemon, but it's just so I can store my rares somewhere. Like I want my holographics in a box so they're all safe and sound and stuff like that. But aside from that, it's like I think box is the way to go. You get the most boosters, you get to rip the most, you get the most cards, you get the most chances. And it's just value. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons. Like I also have all the penny sleeves and I have the dragon shield sleeves, and so I don't need the elite trainer boxes to come with some of that stuff. And so maybe if I was making decks, I might want the trainer box so that I could get more sleeves and I wouldn't have to go buy them. They just kind of come with the box. But I think just getting a whole box of boosters, if that's in your budget, is the way to go. And I'm opening, I think, starting in January here. I'll be opening 2 boxes a month. And for Yu-Gi-Oh, the box was like $55, and you get way less too. But I mean, a box is a box.
Mhm.
And I think the most expensive is Pokemon is like at almost 200. You know, I don't really remember Magic. Magic might have been comparable to that, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
gone up
man,
from the
I get to
years.
just rip. Yeah, I love it.
Oh, I bet. I mean, opening up packs of Pokemon, I mean, just a box in general is wild. I mean, back in the day when I was first introduced to Pokemon, I remember like there was like 3 packs, right? You would have like a little box that had 3 packs in it. So occasionally we would get something like that, but if anything, it was just like a pack or 2 packs, and then my brother and I would just be able to open them up and trade them with each other and show our friends and get into like trading that way. But the like now being able to have a box of 36 packs and be able to open them back to back to back is like just total candy. It's like Halloween all over again. You're just shoving it all in. Just I can't get enough of this stuff. And then you're like, you find a good card, and then all of a sudden you find a better card, and it's like, oh well, what am I supposed to do now? Like I want like to me, I'm like, I know the deck that this card belongs in. Like I know that this is going to go into this deck and it's going to work with this strategy. I would imagine you look at that card and see a whole different side of it. You're looking at it going, oh my gosh, this one is absolutely pristine. Eventually, it's going to need to get graded. How rare is it to find a card, this exact card?
So I get hype over a couple things, and it'll grow as I get into the competitive realm. But some of it's represented in values, like actual prices of cards, because some of the higher price cards will be that way in Magic because they're good in the game. But for me, I know what the top cards are. I know whichever one's the most expensive and what's the price. It's like the crown jewel. I know what I'm looking for, and this is for Pokemon here. And then it's like I don't know. I don't look at what the cards look like ahead of time. I don't look at all of them. So I'm like cruising through. I'll skip basically all the commons and stuff. I don't even know some of these Pokemon anymore. But I'll get to a card that, like, the artwork, it's a full art card, and I'm just like, dude, I love this. And I'll look up later, the card will be like worthless, but it doesn't matter. It's just like, for whatever reason, it strikes me. Like, one I pulled recently was a Porygon, or a Porygon Z, like a variant of Porygon, but it was like a bedroom of a gamer with like the RGB keyboard glowing and like neon
Wow.
lights, and it was just such a pretty little, it was like a snapshot of part of my own personality in a card. And
Mm.
it's like not typically what I would really go for in a Pokemon card, but it just hit me right, and I was like, dude, I got it. This is one that I'm gonna love. Like, I sleeved it, I put it in a shield. I'm like, I'm keeping it. And so it didn't really have value, but it was like I had some connection to it.
Yeah.
And in Sorcery, it's the same kind of deal, except Sorcery has those like curio cards that are like one out of every 40 boxes or cases or some outrageous number. And so you're kind of chasing for one of them, and you don't even know what they all are when you're pulling. So it's like you're trying to look carefully, but you're trying to go kind of fast, and it's like with that one, I ended up pulling one that looked really good. It was holographic and rare. And I sent a picture to a couple of my friends, and they were all like, oh man, I would be keeping that. And I sold it for dirt cheap on eBay, like with a lot of other ones. But the one I kept was a different non holographic full art. It wasn't worth the while, but it had like all these whimsical creatures on there. And I just thought it was neat. It was like, with Sorcery, it's really like, I think the actual paintings are hitting me a little bit. Like, I see some that are like, they're beautiful, but it's like, I don't know that I care about them. And then some I see that are stylized, and I'm just like, dude, like, this is so cool. So it's really, I guess, just a lot of personal bias when I'm pulling. And I
Hmm.
definitely do not appreciate, like, oh, this, like, competitive card, like, I would go right over that. I would have no clue. I don't even look that long at them.
There was one that I got, just like a digital pack, from the New Set Foundations, uh, on Arena, and the card name is Bloodthirsty Conqueror. It's a vampire knight, and this card just spoke to me. And again, it goes back to when I first got into Magic. The first like deck I played that wasn't even mine, it was like a knight deck. It was a white and red strategies of just like attacking. So this vampire knight is a black card, but it's just like a beefy creature. Flying, it has death touch. It's a 5/5 for 5 mana. That's a really solid value creature. Like, so of course it's gonna be worth like money. It's gonna translate into the like collecting side of things. And I looked it up because I was like, wait a second. Like, this card I want. Like, I want this card in my collection now. And it's, of course, it's already like $74, $75. Full art if you get like, or the extended art one. And the mechanism on it that I love so much is just in line with these other cards that we were talking about lately through with Magic. It has, when an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So, like, anytime you're dealing them a crazy amount of damage, you're just going to be gaining a crazy amount of life. And you can like stack that onto itself in the game where every time you gain life, your opponent loses that much life. So you could like just have like a endless, death spiral pretty much. Um, that shocks them. And this is like maybe there's a card that's similar to it from prior years, but this one called to me when I open up on a pack in the digital game. I'm like, wow, this, like, now that I've been playing for a while, I kind of have some favorite strategies more or less. This one was like all up my alley, where I'm like, this card is so good for 5 mana. I want this.
Nice. What's your favorite card? Like that you own, I guess.
Meat Hook Massacre, I think, is one of my favorites, only because right when I pulled it, it was pretty valuable. Not super valuable. It's like $40. I didn't get like the extended art one. It was just a regular one. But then they banned it. So they banned it out of standard pretty soon after I pulled it. So I got excited about that because it made me think, like, looking at the game from another perspective, oh, this is cool. It's such a good card. Like, through all the metadata they have online, they're like, all right, we have to get rid of this card because it's just, it's too OP in too many decks. So if it kind of, it makes somebody like you were talking about earlier again, like, it can make somebody frustrated to play the game if, like, you just have 3 cards and if one of those 3 cards shows up, you win the game. Like, there's no chance around it. And this is kind of one of those cards. So that one I really appreciated because of that very reason. Once they banned it, it got me more excited about it. And then now they've recently released Meat Hook Massacre 2, which is like, it's kind of a crappier version. But it brought everybody to remember that there was, well, what's Meat Hook Massacre 1, and then now it's pretty much like got everybody hooked on that Meat Hook Massacre 1 all over again. Other than that, I mean, Onicold, I would think that artifact card I mentioned earlier, that was a fun one, just because that, like, such cheap card. It was literally like a 40-cent card. Like, this is like dirt cheap. And you could stack 4 of them in your deck, and that would just create an insane strategy on its own. That card, I think, speaks volumes with just the overall, like, idea of Magic. Like, you don't need all the money in the world to build an amazing deck. If you just figure out the right strategy and then find those cards, I mean, you can, like, search for keywords. Even on Arena, you can search like the word whenever. And this is a really cool ability. Like, a whenever ability is like for example, whenever a creature enters the battlefield. And so that'll happen like every single time a creature enters the battlefield, unless the card says, like, this only happens once each turn or something. But if it doesn't say that, then you could set it up where, like, you could do what that guy did, where you have 160 creatures enter the battlefield in one turn, and that could trigger this same ability on one card like 160 times. So there's really neat mechanisms that you can find in the game and then build an entire deck off of just whatever that, you're attracted to. And I just like these strategies that are just more of the, like, not the usual what you would see in a ranked match all the time. There's plenty of various strategies, but it almost always gets to be like the same deck ideas once you get way high up in ranked matches. You're looking at very similar strategies at that point, because everybody knows this over 20 times, this is going to win 15 times. Or, whatever.
It's funny that you say similar. Like, they're not all identical still?
No, because, like, you'll find a strategy that is amazing, and then you'll find a card. You're like, why didn't anybody put this card into this deck? Like, you'll look at it online, and you'll see what most people are going to be like, all right, this is the deck to build this exact deck of 60 cards. But they could easily be leaving out some cards that are going to, like, be like, okay, well, I would prefer to play with these cards, with these 4 different cards out of the entire deck. I'll keep everything else the same, but I'm going to change these 4 out. And it's going to, introduce new strategies in that deck. There's the thing called a sideboard, which is really neat too, where you can just, like, have extra cards on the side. So if you play best out of 3 with somebody, then after the first game, you can go to your sideboard, pull cards out of your deck, and put in some cards from your sideboard, so that you're going to be doing that to align with what their strategy is. Like, okay, what cards do I need that are going to really screw up their strategy and fuck them up? That's exactly what you're looking for in a lot of these rake matches. But I usually will just play the, like, 1 of 1, best out of 1, just beat somebody. And I think the app does a really good job at pairing you with somebody who is of your same skill level. Sometimes you'll get really lucky and you'll win just so fast. You'll win with 20-0 instantly, and sometimes it'll be a long match, or you'll do the exact opposite. You'll lose instantly. You can't ever get beat up over that because that's just how playing 100 matches, you're gonna get a match that plays like that. I mean, I'm shocked that after all these years collecting in Pokemon, there hasn't been something that brought you to the competitive side of things.
No, I mean, because I played it online and it was just. It got to the point you were discussing, like where everybody's kind of using the same strategies, like right away. And at the time I was playing, I really wanted kind of like a Magic where I'm strategizing or I'm seeing new things, and instead it was like I can't remember what the Pokemon was, but it was like a Wigglytuff or like it was some colorless Pokemon, and it would come out and it was just like I had a deck of them too with some like cheap cards. I don't even know if they're legitimate in competitive play. One I think was like a Balloon Pikachu, which I think is like a promo card, but it was like allowing you to do extra stuff in your turn. It was just OP. And it was like my deck was OP and everyone else's deck was OP, and it just was too quick, and it was kind of like there wasn't any variation in strategy. It was just like I knew exactly what they were going for, and they knew exactly what I was going for, and it's who's going to pull it. And so it was just like, I don't know, it got boring. And the wins came easy, and the losses came easy, and I don't know, I just didn't appreciate it. And, on the flip side, whenever I rip a pack, even if I don't get anything, it's like, always have some sort of value, Like, I ripped a pack with my coworker. She ended up getting a full art trainer card, and I got like some garbage cards. I think I had actually pulled the rare already in my own collection, and it was one I didn't care about then, but I ended up putting one of the reverse hollows up in my work area, and it just sits there. I think some of my coworkers dislike it because they feel like it's a weird childish thing to have, but it brings me some joy, and I just look at the Pokemon every once in a while.
Oh yeah.
But as far as like the game itself, at the time I couldn't really get into it. It doesn't mean it's dead. I might play Pocket or something like that. I'm gonna focus on Arena because I can only do but so many things.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much you have left you want to talk about. How do you feel about wrapping this thing up soon? I have a reason I'm asking that too, I guess.
Ooh, yeah. Well, we can just save the reason for our listeners next time.
Well, I wanted to end with a segment. I was waiting. I was just gonna pop this in, but I feel like maybe it would be good to have an ending segment, like give viewers something
to
look
on.
forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just don't know if you're ready for that yet.
Why not, man? We can end this one shorter than the other ones, and we'll keep doing this as we choose every episode.
That sounds. Yeah, that sounds good. Plus, I'll probably go play some Arena after this.
Oh boy.
So, listen, I'm gonna need you in the background here, okay?
Sure.
Because I know you don't have enough on your plate already. I'm gonna need you to add some whimsical, magical sounding track softly to the back of this, okay? And I'm gonna call this segment Sejum's Satisfaction, and it's gonna make sense to you in just a moment. I want to take you on a journey, Kevin. All right, I want you to just follow me. You are in a new place. You're not in your studio. You are now just in the desert. All right,
been transported.
And you're transported.
Do I have water
there.
in the desert at least?
You have no water. You feel the sun on your neck burning, and you feel the coarse sand between your toes, and you walk up to what you see is a bottle. And what are you going to do?
Oh boy. I feel like I want to break that bottle.
All right. So you go to break the bottle, and out comes a djinn. And he tells you his name is Sejum. All right? This is a djinn named Sejum, and he is going to reward you or not based on his satisfaction. Okay, and then I'm going to play a game with you, Kevin.
Okay.
So this djinn is going to ask you 3 questions, and it's going to be followed up by a challenge. And I'm going to keep score of these points for life now. Okay, so this pressure is on for you to answer these questions correctly. Now, this djinn, he just happens to know my personal life because that's what these questions are based on.
Of course.
So on like before we started, we had talked about just kind of like ad-libbing stuff that was actually happening in our trading card lives.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I used to do was buy PSA cards like every paycheck. And I got out of that because, I moved, I had some challenges. And today I was like, you know what, let me shop for that. That's why I was looking at Pokemon prints, because I was trying to decide what purchase I wanted to make, if any. And I ended up buying a PSA 10 card off of eBay. And so, armed with this knowledge, you standing in the desert, look at this djinn, and the mighty djinn Sejum says, what type of PSA card did Michael buy? Was it A, Pokemon, B, Magic, C, Sorcery, or D, Yu-Gi-Oh? These are all worth 25 points. I want you to know that.
Oh, well, I was only expecting 1 point, so now I'm excited.
Yeah, dude, 25. You don't know what prizes are. You don't know what the points mean. Only Sejum knows.
Right now, I've already decided because my answer is I want it to be sorcery. Therefore, I'm going to say sorcery because that will bring me joy because of the little amount of knowledge that both you and I have about it. You, of course, a lot more than me, but I'm hoping it's sorcery. We'll see.
So you answer sorcery. Lightning strikes. The djinn looks displeased. He informs you that it was indeed a Magic the Gathering card.
Okay.
That was purchased.
Awesome.
So the second question, also 25 points. What is the rarity of the Magic card? And for the listeners, if they're noobs like me, the rarities for Magic are common, uncommon, rare, and mythic rare. So yeah, choose wisely. This is the second of your third question before your challenge, Kevin.
Well, I'm going to instinctively assume it would be mythic, and I'm now going to confidently and lock in the word rare.
All right. Well, the djinn, he looks displeased again. A storm rustles around you. Lightning strikes a second time. As the rarity of the card, he informs you, was common.
Whoa.
And so, I don't know if you do, like PSA cards at all, if you know about them, but each one they classify. So, say it's a base set Charizard, right? A base set holographic Charizard. They know the number of them that are graded Gem Mint 10. Now, there's some like weird like nuance where the 9s people will kind of crack open sometimes and try to regrade them. I think it's against the PSA terms, but people do it anyway.
Wow.
But the 10s, yeah, I mean, they're trying to get that 10.
Yeah,
but the 10s, no one would ever do that. So there's like a quantity where you get to see how many of this card exists in Gem Mint.
Oh my gosh,
so,
I'm getting so excited. I think I know where this is going.
The genie asked you, what is the quantity of this card?
Go give me the
options are,
oh yeah, I need it.
Between 1 and 10, between 11 and 50, between 51 and 500, or more than 500.
Okay, well, we're going to sing it home. I'm going to sing my praise to you and premise this one by saying, I know you being the collector, as you mentioned earlier. I believe if you had the choice of picking the card that you were going to purchase with your money, the only option that you would have any interest in would be A, 1 to 10.
The genie, he seems pleased. The storm subsides.
Wow.
And he grants you 25 points.
Ooh,
so
all right.
the card, I don't know if you'll know it or not.
Do you know what set it's in?
I do. I'll tell you all that. Now, I do want to tell you, this is something that the genie was supposed to let you know. But, I need to work on my storytelling. But it is against the rules to Google or look up anything of this card for this challenge. So you must do this on your own accord, or else the Jin Sejam, he will curse you, okay? But the card is called Lucky Offering. It's got like a little white cat on it holding up its paw, and it's from Kamigawa Neon Destiny or
Kamigawa.
Neon Dynasty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And this card, it cost me $26. And $4 shipping, so $30, which is like that was pretty much, I would fluctuate between $30 and like $200 when I was buying Pokemon cards. But the reason I got this, and you were right on the money, was because I there's an app for PSA, and they all come with barcodes, the cards themselves. So on your card, it has all those details, what's set. This is from 2022, and when I scanned it, it is a 1 of 1. So it's probably because it's a common and it's a foil. So I don't really understand if that's rare or not. In Pokemon, you get all sorts of reverses. But I was tickled by the fact that it was a 1 of 1, and I liked the cat.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, if I grade cards, it costs me about $35 to attempt to get a grade. So to peg less than that, like $5 less, get a 1 of 1 foil cat, I was like, dude, I'm on this. And it's fun. It's in my budget. I didn't have to worry about it.
Nice.
So I got it.
Share with me what the abilities are.
Now that is where the challenge comes in.
Ooh.
So in the desert, you now have no water, no riches, but you do have 25 points awarded by the Jin. I'm typing that in so I don't forget. And the Jin offers you a challenge. So in this challenge, if you get this correct, you will gain 500 points. And if you get it incorrect, he will subtract half of the points you earned up to this point. And he's promising you riches, but you don't know what. You just know that you want these points. So I'm going to read the card again, and then I'm going to basically have you guess the quantity written on this card. So it's a sorcery card, Lucky Offering. It's 1 mana. It's like a white star.
Yep,
I don't know what that means.
It's a plains, so it's a white mana card. Yep.
There you go. The art, like the wording, the artful wording is, the playful kami reserves its greatest blessings for those who brought not wealth or rare delicacies, but particularly amusing trinkets. And I'm going to replace the quantity on the card itself with X. Now, the X is the same for both quantities, but it says, destroy target artifact with mana value X or less. You gain X life. And the genie asked you, what is X?
For being 1 mana, it would indicate that it's either only going to be 1 or 2 are your options. It would be overpowered as a common card if it were to be a 3 mana that it would destroy for just 1 mana. So I am going to lean towards either 1 or 2. I'm frustrated that I don't remember this card, but maybe it just wasn't something that I've come across. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to have to go with 2 final answer.
All right. Well, the answer is 3.
Wow. Oh, man.
So,
Jeez.
It says, destroy target artifact with mana value 3 or less. You gain 3 life. Kind of cool for a card.
And you said it's a sorcery?
It says sorcery on there.
Cool. So
it's a common, though.
Remember when we were talking about terms last podcast, and I broke down like the 5 parts of your turn? There's the like untap, upkeep step, of your turn, then there's the main phase, then there's combat phase, then there's the main phase again, and then there's the end step. And I'll give you a hint. There's 2 times during your turn you're able to play that card. When do you think you're able to play that card? The options again are going to be upkeep, main phase, combat, main phase 2, or end phase, end step.
Oh, I would have assumed that you could use this, I guess, before and after combat. So I guess you call that upkeep?
Main phase.
Main phase.
Yep, and you're exactly right. You can play a sorcery anytime you can during the main phase, which would be the part right before combat, and then right after combat.
And that's just from playing Arena too, because I had gotten to a point where I was casting something. I assume it's a sorcery card in order to I mean, there were actually different effects it was teaching me. I think one just killed the other monster right away, and one boosted my troops. But it was all fun. I hope you enjoyed that segment. That's my card now, the 101.
I appreciate it. And I would love to just add some insight. Before you do.
Oh, yeah,
I just want to say
go for it.
I think that the reason why you've got a 1 of 1 is because that card probably wasn't played a whole lot at the time. Like the strategies didn't really have any players like needing a 1 mana sorcery to destroy an artifact for up to 3 mana. Just maybe wasn't fit with like standard, at least from what I remember. But I think being that it was a common card, it probably got like used like in drafts. Like people weren't thinking about collecting like something like that, which then is exciting to hear that like there are cards that probably, if you look up the regular value of that card, it's probably very, very small. But then when you all of a sudden have a gem mint 10 graded PSA card, instantly it's worth like a lot more,
Yeah, well, it's funny because
cool.
the 26 bucks is like, it's basically less than the cost to get it graded. So it's basically, I don't know who graded this thing, but it's obviously doesn't have value to anybody really. And it's probably because who would grade this little common card, but I liked it because it was a cute little cat, and I'm learning the cards, so I like read it and thought it was cool. It also had, I don't know if all the cards have little, paragraphs written down under there, but I thought that was cool too.
That's exciting. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And awesome. When I saw 1 of 1, I was like, it's probably kind of the equivalent of like having a Diglett from, a set that's a common. It's like, who's going to get that graded? But one guy did, and now it's mine.
Awesome. Congrats. I'm happy.
Yeah.
It was a very fun segment.
The first Magic card I've ever gotten in a PSA slab. There's something about it it's just fun.
1 of 1, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's fun for sure. Like, if you can't say anything else about the card, you're like, hey man, there's only one of these out there, right?
Yeah. Cool.
But just to wrap up, we'll go back to the desert. You have displeased the genie, but he remains somewhat impressed that you were able to answer one of his 3 questions, albeit you did not pass the Djinn's challenge. He awards you half of the 25 points, which he kindly rounds to 15, not because it's easier for anybody to keep track of, but that's how the Djinn where he's magic, don't worry about it. And as the heat of the desert gets to you, you fade to black with 15 points and the faint memory of a genie. And yeah, we'll leave that segment right there.
There we go.
We'll return to it one day.
And like that, we'll return next time with more cards. So thanks for listening, everybody. Anything else, Mike, before we go?
No, that's it for me.
Alrighty, we'll catch you all next time. Thanks for joining us.